Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Northern Home Garage. In the garage this evening, we have a 2016 Chevrolet Cruze Premier, and we're going to be doing some brakes on this guy tonight. Yeah, we were doing the winter tire, summer tire switchover on the weekend, and when I pulled the rears off to put the all seasons on, she's metal on the back. So when I asked my daughter, "Didn't you hear anything or weird noises, grinding noise, metal on metal?" Her answer was, "Well, Dad, the music's too loud." Alright, so we got the car up on the jacks. As we can see, I have the wheels off. Quick jacks. First time I actually used them for brake job. And here's what we're up against. All four wheels are like this. So this is, like I mentioned, 2016. And it's got just over 96,000 kilometers on it now. Alright, so here's the brake rotors with the rusty ridges. And down here, these are the brake pads. And you're supposed to have material in between the metal here and the actual brake rotor, and there is nothing. Can't even get my screwdriver in there. So we know that these are going to need replacing in the rear for sure. And if we go around to the front on the other side, not as bad as the rear because the fronts have more material, of course. And I soaked these down already with some penetrating fluid. And these also have rust ridges. And we have more material in the front than we do in the rears, but still not safe. And might as well get them done now while we have them. I have a full bench over there of stuff to do, so let's get at it. Alright, required tools. Not necessarily an axe, but some type of persuader. I have a 13 millimeter open end wrench, as well as 15 millimeters right here. I took out my short and my long because I'm not really sure which one I'm going to be using. And or if I can get the ratchet back there, I got a 1/2 inch ratchet with a 13 mil socket for the caliper slide bolt and a 15 mil for the bracket bolts. So the 15 mil is going to be for the bracket bolt in the back here, like so. And son of a... All right, and the 13 mil is going to be for the slider bolts right here. Alright guys, so the following procedure is a proceed at your own risk procedure. Just to keep you up to date on what we've done so far is we put the rotor on, and you saw me cleaning the hub surface, and that was to get all the rust off so that the rotor doesn't sit on a rust ridge, and you risk vibration, finally setting the rotor in, the rust turning to dust, and then the rotor becoming loose and causes vibrations, and all kinds of bad stuff could really happen. So we really don't want any of that to happen to you guys. Notice that I cleaned up the caliper bracket. This is the slide bracket. And I cleaned up the surfaces in here so I could put the new clips in with the high temp grease, and my slides are nice and loose, sliding really good. So I'm not going to touch those guys right now. When I do a tire swap next year, I'll check them again, and if I have to service them at that time, I will. But right now I don't want to unseal them because they're nice and loose and they're doing what they're supposed to do. Also cleaned up all the bolt mounting surfaces where it sits nice and flush on the actual knuckle. Cleaned all that up. So now this next procedure we're going to talk about a little bit. And if you look right here, you're going to see the caliper piston right here. And this is the piston that pushes out onto the brake pad and compresses the pads onto the rotor to stop the car. The old school ones used to be able to just put a C-clamp on them, and you would just tighten the C-clamp. And what would happen is it would seat the actual it would push the piston back in and seat it flush so you can mount your pads and slide it back on. These require a special tool. It's a tool that has two little indents on it, and it sits right into these little grooves in here. And as you turn the top, it turns the caliper and it pushes down, and that's what seats the actual piston, because this piston spins inside. So the way I get around it, guys, I'll show you real quick, is I just take a C-clamp like so. And then what I do is I just put some pressure on it, like that. Not lots of pressure, just enough. I pull the boot down, and then I take a pair of channel locks, and I knocked my light over. No, I take a pair of channel locks, and I just, being careful not to tear the boot. This is why I say this is do it at your own risk. You don't want to tear the boot, and I just slowly turn the piston clockwise while not pinching the boot, and trying not to mar the surface of the piston. And then when this gets loose, I just give it a couple other turns, like so, making sure I'm not spinning the boot or tearing the boot. Again, on there with the channel locks, very gentle, spinning it in, like so, until she's down at the bottom. And then I'm just making sure that the actual boot is seated properly. Once I get that off of there, and you notice I cleaned up this surface as well, making sure the boot's nice and seated, not twisted. And now we can go ahead and slide this onto our pads when we get our bracket back on. Guys, it's all put back together. Took all of what, 15 minutes to do one side. And like what normally happens when I say I started off with what, 3-4 tools, this is what it ends up looking like when I'm done. Whoops. If you notice, when I started off removing this the screw here, this lock screw, the rotor was turning, so I made the mistake of trying to remove it after I had disassembled it. I'm thinking for the other side, the smart way of doing it is put the park brakes on, dummy, then take the screw out. Then you're good to go. Whatever. Alright, so I'm going to jump over to this side and get it done. I'm going to get the back wheels on. over there after I clean the insides. And then I'll show you guys how I do the front. Front should be interesting. All right, so 20 minutes later, we have our passenger side done. And we have our driver's side done. Nothing too complicated there, just follow the instructions and anybody can do it, as long as you got a couple of hand tools, and don't worry about stuff like this, the jacks, whatever else. If you just have jack stands and a home jack, you're ready to go. Alright, let's see if we can get this guy out of here. No heating it. Oh, don't have to heat the front. Perfect. Now, these fronts have never been apart. In 90,000 kilometers, the rears were apart when the car changed ownerships from one daughter to the other. Pretty nice for Northern Ontario. Alright, so we're going to try not to hang the caliper by the brake hose. You can either support it up on top or maybe put a piece of wire in there, which I might end up doing soon enough. Got a different system up here. Got a couple of clips. Some retainer clips. Just going to pinch them. Pull out. And these pads should. And if I had my screwdriver, son of a... There's pad number one. So we did have some material left in the front, probably 3 mil, which is almost a discard. Nope. The rear pad was worn down to way below any safety levels, for sure. And these rotors are not horrible, but the back is much worse than the front, so we're still going to replace on them for sure. And it looks like I need a bigger socket back there. Bolts for the caliper bracket, which is this guy right here. That turns out that's a 21. So you might want to be prepared for that. I was lucky enough I had one. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, some very choice words were had between me and the car. And we had a little conversation. I explained to the car how if you don't do what I want you to do, it's gonna get ugly for you, and you're not mine, you're my daughter's, and I want to stay friends. So eventually the car decided to give up, and look at the size of these things holding that front caliper bracket in. So it turns out my 21 mil socket was actually split and was slipping on these, so not even sure if it was actually 21 mil, but the 13/16 wrench came to the rescue, and my axe, and loosened those off, and there's some serious yellow high strength Loctite on there. They did not want these coming out for any reason. You're stopping a car, not stopping a transport truck, but they're big. Anyways, car and I, we're good. We're all good. We settled our differences. So let's take the bracket off now. So like I said, the car and I came to terms. We're good. Other side, pull that bracket off. Another thing I mentioned, these had not been off yet. These are right from the factory with 90,000 kilometers. And again, these slide pins are just mint. Perfect. So again, I will probably not be taking those apart. Let's see. At all, sorry about your ears, folks. And we're looking pretty good. So again, we're going to clean all this up, run the disc through there. We're also going to clean up our piston up front here, clean that guy, clean in here, and yeah, we should be ready to go. Morning. I packed it up last night, probably 10:30 or so after getting the fronts apart. So it's morning, and we're going to get back at it, start cleaning the front. Hey guys, just a quick note. You're going to notice that there is wear bars or squealers on the top of the pads, and this it goes in the upright position on the back pad, like so, like that. So don't forget, squealers upper. Another thing you might be wondering about are these little retaining springs. Sometimes you pop them off and you're not sure how to get them back on. So I'm going to show you right here. So there's an ear on the pad here, and there's another ear on the pad on the other side over there. So these always go inward facing, like this. See, the hooks are down. And these are pretty simple to put on. I'm just going to grab it. It's hard with one hand. We're just going to hook it onto the pad on the opposite side, like so. Oh, it's hard with one hand. And then the other one goes on the ear on this side of the pad, and then you release. And I don't know if you can see that. That is how that clip is going to sit, like so. There you go, just like that. Also, something I forgot to mention last night is when you're installing the pads, the actual piston, if you can see the piston right in there, right at the back, some of the pads will have guide pins on the bottom, and what you need to do is align those there's two little circles in the piston. If you go back in the video, you'll see that. You have to line the pins on the pads with those there. So if you can see, oh, it's so hard to see there now, but if You can see the groove right there is lined up with the center of the pad. Also, General Motors does say that the rear knuckle bolts, these big guys right here, these are remove and discard because they're torque to yield. I did not replace them, so that's on me. I personally don't think I should be replacing them, but they are discard. So there we go, we got it all together. It's nice and tight. We have our caliper bolts back here, torqued to 30 foot-pounds. And the main bracket bolts, I'll put it right here, the torque spec. I haven't torqued those yet. I'm going to go check that out. But one thing I do like to do prior to putting the wheel back on, every time I do one corner of a car, I always go into the vehicle and I pump the brakes a few times to seat the piston back into the pads and the caliper. And the reason for that is if you just happen to change the front brakes, you're pushing the pistons back, you jump in the car, you're backing out of the garage, your first brake apply or even your second brake apply, you will have no brakes. Because now what it's doing is you're pushing the fluid back into the master cylinder reservoir, and as you're pressing the brakes, the piston's coming out. You panic, you pump again, the piston comes out, it hasn't seated to the pads yet. So you could end up smacking into a workbench or running something over that you don't want to run over. So every single time you do one side, get back in the vehicle, pump the brakes a couple times, get that piston seated back in. Well guys, I think we're going to call that a wrap. We're done. I've shown you one rear, one front. Just make sure when you're doing something like this at home that you're doing it safely. I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to actually install them myself, so there you go. So anyway guys, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you learned a little something. If you have any questions, put them down below. I'll see if I can answer them. I have no problem with that. So once again guys, take care and we'll see you next time.